Hey there. And in my left eye, you can see me in a fractal way. If I bring you closer, look at that, there are more faces of me. This is, let's just take the glasses off because they're getting distracting, I'm seeing. An after interview kind of reaction video about my thoughts about the interview I did with Molinet. I think it's Anarchist War Journal number 27 or 37. I think 27. Okay, yeah, the camera's right there. Yes, yes it is. I keep forgetting where the camera is. Sometimes I'm looking over here when it's actually over here. Not the left side, the right side. The first thing I want to talk about is how during one part of the conversation I said that his ethics were flimsy. And then after that, I was kind of screaming in my own head, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, I just called his ethics flimsy. I just called his ethics flimsy. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Because I really admire Call, and I'm like going, did I just insult him? I just insulted him? Did I? Holy shit, this is not good. Does he like me still? That's the kind of thoughts, because, I admire him a lot, and I want him to think well of me. But I also will speak my mind, so that creates a bit of a cognitive dissonance there. He was doing a new format, and I'm wondering if I should be sorry that I was his first person for doing that with, because I'm unique in the way I approach conversation, I guess you could say. Towards one spot of it, I saw us going into sort of like a black hole conversation. Things were just breaking down a little bit. And it got to that point where it seemed like it was in relation to, I think, veganism. And about you can just go off to this own little place, and then the conversation kind of just paused for a moment. And I was wanting to talk about, I had been also wanting to talk about other things like the holographic universe and how the isolation principle is inherent to our various modes of thought. Namely, that the default mode of statism or any other kind of trauma is that you are fundamentally alone, you are isolated, and that is what is paralleled to meaning freedom. Namely, freedom is where you can just impose yourself on everyone else, and you are essentially alone in the world. You are separate from everyone else, because that's kind of what a king or a ruler is. They are separate from everyone else, and they are isolated. Machiavelli, the king is the most paranoid person. The Prince book by Machiavelli. I forget it. Niccolo Machiavelli, I think. And then I transitioned that to talking about how that's a very common thought in statist regards. I just transitioned the conversation with that. That was a really intense experience, I think, for both of us, partially because of the way that I view the world. And I was surprised by the distinction that Call makes in regard to ethics and aesthetics, because I put a lot of thought to what I term morality, to the definition that I give for it. And while I don't have detailed out the varieties and distinctions of various consciousness levels, I do have the symbiosis, the what's the word? Synchrony, not synchrony, similarity, where the interactions are consistent. The interactions are symmetrical. Symmetrical is the word I'm looking for. For example, me raping you is not a symmetrical relationship because you can't also, I mean, you can technically rape me, but you don't want to be raped, and I also don't want to be raped. So it's an asymmetrical relationship in terms of consent. Now we can have sex, and that's a consensual thing, but rape is not a consensual activity, and that's the point here, is that it doesn't have sameness in regards to the interaction. The interaction, if it was under, the golden rule, if you wouldn't want it done onto you, don't do it onto other people. That's the basic idea there of the symmetry of conversation. It is sensitive to what's going on. It is sensitive to the consent of those it is affecting. There were a bunch of other things we didn't really get to, and that's probably why, and that's part of why we talked about me going on the show again. It doesn't really seem like a show though, but it also is. We did a we, we did a first video, started out and then we messed it up, and then we started it up again, and I was going, oh, what are we doing? I don't know. Okay, let's find out. the oh wow, that was actually after we ended the video. I had to ask him about why it was he did the mostly around him locally at Richmond, Virginia, as opposed to online. And he was talking about how he likes to interact with people and have relationships with people as opposed to pixels on a screen. And I agree. But I also see a lot of potential for very dynamic types of interactions. Like, for example, him interviewing, what's his name? SXE Phil. Or other people or The Amazing Atheist. That would be interesting, I think. So, you could almost say that of the interactions with the more well-known people of certain groups, The Amazing Atheist, SXE Phil, other people you might think of, doing interviews with them, although I'm not sure that they would be necessarily interested in doing an interview with him. Kind of is anarchist-based, I guess, a little bit. So that would kind of be a self-selection right there, which would then be the according to it being local, because you can just be there and just say, hey, you want to talk? And then they go over and talk. And that's something that I feel like I need to start getting into doing, and I've got no idea how I would go about doing that. I feel like I could probably set up a shop sign or a sign outside, and would that be okay? Do I need to get permission or something like that? I really don't know, because those signs aren't exactly what you would call typical. They probably and obviously aren't government approved. So, what would it be like to have an anarchist sign that was approved by the council or the government or something? That sounds like an oxymoron, you know? I guess that's something that I'll ask all about too, because I sensed a lot of tapes running, and by tapes I mean similar roads of thought, but that's mainly because I've seen a lot of these videos, and so I'm familiar with the arguments, and so I'm used to the arguments, and so I see them coming a mile away in a sense, and so I have time to think about my response to them a little bit. But also in being faced with them, such as with the ones in regards to veganism and the animal stuff, where I talked about the Eskimos and whatnot, which is one that I've heard before from him, I found myself searching for what the core idea of the whole thing was. Because everything has coherency to it and cogency, and if there is a gap in thought or a gap in thinking, you'll find that that correlates to a breakdown in conversation. I think that that's part of why our conversation broke down a little bit. I think we both weren't expecting it to go the way that it did. And that made it both rocky, intense, and also invigorating. I think it was intense for both of us. That's the impression I got from him, at least. It was certainly intense for me.